Hello and welcome back. You are joined by 2/3 of Talk Nonsense tonight, myself and Charlie Skeggs. Charlie, how are we doing, mate?
Yeah, all good. Keeping an eye on what's going on in the world of football and other nonsense things. And obviously, we found something we're going to have a little chat about that broke today and get both our opinion on something. So yeah, I'm really interested. How are you?
Yeah, not so bad, my friend, not so bad. It's true, actually. It is an interesting topic, isn't it? So what we're going to talk about today is the breaking news that Wilfried Zaha is heading off to Saudi Arabia, isn't he? And he's not alone in that. N'Golo Kante, rumoured today. Karim Benzema looks set to be heading over to Saudi Arabia. He left Real Madrid. Cristiano Ronaldo's already there. And one Lionel Messi might well be going over there. And you look at that for a lineup, Charlie, of the first wave of players heading over to a country that's pumping millions into its Premier Division. It's got to be the best ever, hasn't it? Like I look back I remember the Russian league and the Chinese league when they both had their Anzis and their Shanghai Shenuas, and they were buying players like Oscar and Hulk, and I remember Anzi had Samuel Eto'o and I can't remember Christopher Samba was it from Blackburn,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
So it's happened before, obviously, but not to this extent, I don't think. And I think we've said in podcasts before, Middle Eastern investors, they don't do things by halves, do they? And like you see with Newcastle, the Saudis don't do things by halves. They want to win. They want to win now. And you look at this roster, if you like, after Cristiano Ronaldo, who obviously broke the mold, went over there. What is the ceiling with this? Because you look at the players I've just named. Benzema just won the Ballon d'Or last season. Messi's the best footballer ever. N'Golo Kante, Ronaldo, players like this. What is the ceiling, do you think, with a league like this? Or do you think it's just another Russia or another China?
I think it's kind of I think it's a bit of column A, a bit of column B. I think you're dead right. This isn't the first of its kind.
Mm.
And however, as we've said, I think the Saudis are probably the new kids on the block to do this. And there's some things that are a repeat of old, in terms, because I also say when you said that, I also thought about, when the American Soccer League, MLS, was kicking off, and then
Yeah.
LA Galaxy were getting players like Stevie G, Robbie Keane, and obviously Beckham was over there. And the general kind of the familiarity with this is, even though we're talking about, especially two of those players, Messi and Ronaldo, two touted to be arguably the greatest players to ever play the game, they are still, and I say this, don't hate me, Will, but I think we all agree, they're still definitely at the back end of their career.
Mm.
What kind of piqued my interest about this was obviously N'Golo Kante is kind of a bit of a not, he's not completely out of the blue, but you got N'Golo Kante and Wilfried Zaha. And I actually thought about this. I thought, well, familiarity is these are players on the back end of their career. And I think that's something that's
Mm.
happened. I know when Oscar went over, he was still relatively young. I thought that was a
Yeah,
bit
he
strange
was.
of him. At the time, I thought, oh, maybe this is kind of the breaking in the mold. They're getting a player who's still young enough, and potentially, if they have to build this thing though. And even though they've got all the money in the world, football fans, and I'm proud to be one. I know you're proud to be one. We're pretty, we're pretty hard to please. We can all see through this like a transparent veil. This is money, isn't it? Really, let's be honest. It is
Yeah,
money.
of course it is. The main focus now, I imagine, from the people who are doing this and the people who are running it is breaking that mold, as you say, of getting a player that's in their peak. And it's hard, really, because you look at these players, they want to be playing for Real Madrid, don't they? They want to be playing for Real Madrid, Barcelona, PSG, Man City. And to go over there, it's almost unfathomable, isn't it, at that stage in your career? It's a legacy game as much as it's a money game. And the trouble in growing a league like that, I think, is the money's decent in the other places as well, isn't it? It's not as if you're going to be on, tuppence over here or in Paris or in Real Madrid. So it's finding that balance of getting to that point as a league that it becomes so attractive, maybe the area, maybe,
Mm.
more so to attract a player of that ilk. I don't think it's possible personally.
They're taking players that have got such a global brand that they're
Mm.
kind of trying to say, well, because obviously, let's be honest, it's all about, business at the end of the day. Money, of course, but business. Like, they obviously want to grow this thing. They're not just, well, maybe it is a bit of a sort of toy for one man who runs the league, but they want to build the league. But to do that, you
Mhm.
kind of have to create a bit of attraction. So that makes sense to why they're picking these players, because they're going, well, we're taking players that have already established a global brand and trying to attach them to this league, not to fast track so much, but like they kind of have to, because if they tried to take on a bunch of young players who have prospects, those players, if they're of a certain age where they're young and aspiring, they're not necessarily going to have the following. What, they're going to wait for, who knows, Harry Kane in a few years, Mo
Yeah,
Salah,
yeah,
all these
yeah,
players,
yeah.
Haaland in 10 years or maybe in 15 years. I don't know. It's like, but that's it. I don't think it's a business model that will ever really work, because I think because you have to start grassroots to a point, and I don't think these leagues can ever compete, because the grassroots, they'd have to invest so much time. You're talking about 15 years to hopefully get a bunch of players that you believe these guys are going to be the future of this league.
It takes me back personally to the Qatar World Cup, and it's a controversial topic. Of course, it is. Many spoke about sports washing and things like this, and I think there's no coincidence that after the Qatar World Cup, the Saudi League makes the biggest transfer in football in Cristiano Ronaldo, arguably. Every time he's made a transfer, it's been the biggest news, hasn't it? And the coverage is now global. Everybody knows who Al Nasser are now. I didn't know who Al Nasser are. I don't think many
No,
did.
no.
So they're very smart. They're very smart people, evidently. And you see what Newcastle are doing now, flying, doing it the right way, it seems, in terms of not rushing into buying the best players, and then you end up in a Man City situation and you've got 115 cases against you. They're buying players step by step and gradually earning that success. So all eyes are on the Middle East and what it's all about in terms of football and branding and things like that. And then as soon as that happens, you start seeing more and more and more. And the boxing, that's become a massive thing in boxing now. Saudi Arabia looking to confirm the Usyk Fury fight, unification fight. It seems like this has been a plan for a long time that has been executed around the World Cup in Qatar. Today, for instance, Wilfried Zaha on Talksport, it was reported that Atletico Madrid wanted Wilfried Zaha, and that he was very interested in moving over there. I come home, I get the computer switched on, and he's going to Saudi Arabia. And you see something like this, it's hard to see it with much warmth, really, isn't it? Because you see so much money pumped into it, and it is all about the money. So it's definitely a tough conversation to have, I think. But what are your
Mm.
thoughts on the players that aren't as big as brand wise as Messi and Ronaldo? The Kantes, the Wilfried Zahas, and the certain players that look to be going over there, the Aubameyangs, who are obviously just going over there for a payday. How long do you think is the shelf life of this as a league, or do you think it will be one that cements itself?
I think it's an interesting thing. Zaha, again, I think it's a topic I wouldn't mind talking about at some point, which is Zaha's career. As you mentioned, he could have gone to Atletico Madrid. Zaha's not that young, but I still pretty much believe he's not 31 or something. Has he not got
Yeah,
at
he's not.
least 4 years ahead of him? And
He's still
Atletico
performing
certainly.
as well, isn't he? I think that's the big thing. Is Wilfried Zaha's 30 years old. He's still performing.
I mean, I'm sure they've all been sold this idea of, oh, this is the future, and they're all going, yeah, yeah, yeah. Just here's my bank
Yeah,
details. Do you
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah. I think
But
so.
in
Yeah,
answer, but in answer to that 2 point thing we talked about, you mentioned it before about, so when you said, I thought I'll mention that. Is like you mentioned about the grassroots. It's like, well, the other thing they're going to compete with is that they've got to in sort of, well, there's the wrong word for it. I don't know. I don't want to say indoctrinate. It's the wrong word. They want to try and instill this belief in their grassroots football that they want these players to stay. Because if you imagine you get a top quality 17 or 18-year-old Saudi player, well, not being funny, their ambition is probably going to go and play in the Premier League or La
it's true.
Liga.
It's true. Yeah,
So how
exactly.
are they going to convince like the 17-year-old Saudi wonder kid to stay in this league? He's going to be looking at Real Madrid, Barcelona, Man City, Bayern Munich, the Premier
Of
League, La
course he
Liga,
is.
all these, and then you've got to sort of say, well, there's an uphill battle. Either way, it's going to take a lot of time. Like I say,
Mm.
all football fans will see straight through it. We don't really care because, especially the likes of Messi, Ronaldo, they've done their service. We don't blame them getting a bit of a payday on the back end of being the best players to ever play the game, arguably. In terms, I think you're right though. I think when you said about this, I think it's been a very calculated plan around the World Cup,
Mm.
and I think that there it is a danger, but also credit to them. They've probably got the money to. They've definitely got the money. Have they got the patience to see this, which has
Mm.
got to be a 5 to 10 year minimum plan?
It's definitely an interesting one and something that we're definitely going to keep our eye on. The Saudi Premier League looks to be injecting serious stardust this summer. We'll keep up to date with it. Thank you for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you would. That would do us the world of good. Thank you so much for watching. We've been Cal and Charlie from Talk Nonsense. Thank you very much.